Since it's been a minute. Western Conference Finals, meet the Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota Timberwolves meet the Western Conference Finals. And even though it's been 20 years since we last met, the first date jitters are gone. The Timberwolves and everybody in this state are ready to go all the way. And I ain't talking about getting our freak on. I'm talking about getting our finals on, baby. But first, the Wolves have to handle business against the Dallas Mavericks. Oh, my God. I just saw my ex-girlfriend's mom out the window. That just scared the bleep out of me. But first, the Wolves have to handle business against the Dallas Mavericks. And it all gets started in a little over an hour. It's been a party here in the Twin Cities since Sunday. And you know we're going to keep the good times rolling here on the pregame party. Presented to you by Crazy Fresh. We're not just fresh, we are Crazy Fresh. And we couldn't ask for a better sponsor for the show because I am both crazy and fresh. I got the kimono ready to go tonight. Max Fuller here, a.k.a. Marty Max Fly, a.k.a. Kevin Fro Connell, alongside Gophers basketball superstar Parker Fox, partying with you until 7 o'clock. And speaking of partying, Parker, it was a freaking celebration for the ages after the Wolves came back from 20 down to win Game 7 against the Nuggets. We were all shirtless, running through the hallways of KFAN. And if the Wolves keep winning, we might have to broadcast on only FANS because I don't know how I'm going to keep my clothes on, Parker.
Man, it felt like the Exchange nightclub up in the 5th floor in St. Louis Park there. But no, I mean, you know, anytime Chris Hockey comes in with his shirt off, you got to reciprocate the energy. So I don't think anybody can blame us there.
No,
you know?
Nobody can blame us. That's how the entirety of the Twin Cities, the entirety of Minnesota felt after that big time win. But you know, we still got that Minnesota kind of, you know, weariness. We don't want to get too high. I know a lot of people think we're flying a little bit too high. So Parker, as a player, after a big win like that, how do you keep yourself hyped but also not get too high on your own supply?
Well, yeah, you got to trust your work, right? You know, you got to trust what you've done all year. It's an 82 game season. You add on, 11 more games that we've played in the playoffs already. That equals 93 games, and so you've done this 93 times with your team, and you know what to expect from each guy. You know what to expect from your coaching staff. You know what to expect from your training room, from everybody down the list. 1 through however many people you travel and you bring with you. You just got to trust. You got to trust that, and I think that's something we saw the Timberwolves do in Game 7. So expect that this whole series.
Yeah, 100%. How do you not trust, as a fan? How do you not trust this team after the resiliency and the guts they showed coming back from 20 down to beat the champs? We're all still riding high after that. But if you're not familiar, the Dallas Mavericks clipped LA in the first round and left the youngins down in OKC thunderstruck. And the Mavericks have now made it to their second Western Conference Finals since Luka Doncic has been on the team. This Mavs team is quite different from the Nuggets that we faced in the last round. What got the Dallas Mavericks to the conference finals? What kind of team are they for the uninitiated, Parker?
Yeah, they're super talented, and they got some nice young pieces too. I think Derek Lively is a really good-looking rookie. He's plays hard. He kind of brings that big man presence. You pair him with Daniel Gafford. That's kind of their front line. Maxi Kleber is out. He's hurt. Kleber, I said that right.
Yeah, you did say that. I'm impressed.
My roommate's German, so he makes sure I say Kleber, right? But no, they got a decent front line there. But that's where I expect the Wolves to attack is that front line with Naz Reid, Karl-Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, and then you talk about their backcourt. Like you said earlier, they got a really good player in PJ Washington. It's a great pickup for them. And then they got the two-headed monster in Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. And I think they are as talented as you can get. You're going to kind of see what Kyrie does in the first half compared to the second half. He's a second-half closer. Not that he coasts in the first half, but it's that kind of that basketball aura, that swag where he's just going about his business, and then when it's crunch time, he turns it on. So they got a lot of really good pieces that I'm a little nervous about some of their pieces, but like we said earlier, we're here for a reason, and I expect us to come out and take care of business.
Me too. And actually, the more I looked at this Dallas Mavericks team, the more I kind of saw a mirror image of the Timberwolves. I mean, they have a young superstar that kind of has lifted this team to new heights in Luka Doncic, as we have here in Anthony Edwards. They're a big, tall, physical team that kind of overwhelms opposing offenses with their size, as do we. And they made a huge trade last year at the deadline to get Kyrie Irving to re-up their offense. We made a huge trade to get Rudy Gobert to re-up our defense. It took a little bit, but both teams have found success. And I was actually pretty surprised at how similar these two teams are. How do you expect the Wolves to deal with another team that's as big and physical as they are?
Well, yeah, they're similar in, I think, the ways of their energy the most. You know, you talk about a guy like, PJ Washington. You talk about a guy like Derek Jones Jr. Those are two energy, just life-bringing kind of guys. You know, two guys that can sit down defensively, play really good defense. Two guys that want to go out and transition, and two guys that want to play above the rim. So I think those two pieces for them in their starting lineup can be something where we got to match that energy. You know, we have that energy too. Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, Nickeil Alexander-Walker are who I think our main energy guys are, and we got to be able to kind of neutralize that energy that Derek Jones Jr., PJ Washington, and then a guy like, Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively brings. You know, these are, especially these younger guys, they want to fuel off of this young playoff energy. Yeah. You know, they want to hear the crowd. They want to shut the crowd up. They want to have this neutralization of target center's energy, and I look to our guys like Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels to do the same and bring that energy back to them.
Yeah, and they've been getting the most out of their kind of like side guys outside of Kyrie and Luka Doncic. PJ Washington has just been a godsend for them. He averaged nearly 26 points per game from games 2 against the Thunder through Game 4, and then Derek Jones Jr. kind of picked up the slack from there. Yeah. He averaged 19 points from games 4 through 6. So this Dallas Mavericks team is getting the most out of all their players, kind of like the Timberwolves. And you mentioned it: PJ Washington, Derek Lively, Derek Jones Jr. These are kind of their X factors. We know who our X factors are going to be: Jaden McDaniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Naz Reid. We got X factors left and right, baby. Yeah. But who out of those names that you've named, who are you most worried about? It's got to be PJ Washington.
Yeah,
right?
PJ is a guy that I'm super, I look at, he plays a very physical brand of basketball. I'd love to know what his fouls are. I feel like he has 5 or 6 fouls every single game. Plays a super physical brand. I can see him, going on to Ant a little bit, guarding Jaden, switching all over the place. He's a really wiry, long defender. So PJ Washington is a guy that gives me a little bit of those nerves. And then my other guy is just Derek Lively. I think the pairing of Gafford and Lively is a pretty good 1-2 punch. It's not a superstar name in either category, but they're two guys that play really hard. Lively, Game 7 has 12 and 15, and shoots 5 or 6 from the field. He's not going to do anything crazy. He's just going to take care of business and go out there and do his job. And I think when you have two guys like Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, where they've established themselves in this league, they kind of set that tone of their team. Like, hey, we're the two guys that are going to get the the business done. You guys go do the grimy, the dirty, the work, and you gotta hopefully hope that their work doesn't show up as much as the Timberwolves' work shows up.
Right. Yeah, all those guys I'm a little concerned about. But who do you think that is going to guard PJ Washington? It's got to be Karl Anthony Towns, I would assume.
Yeah, matchups are going to be really weird this game because we go big. We go Cat and Rudy to start, and I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Derek Jones Jr. and PJ Washington. I think PJ being a bigger body, that makes more sense for Karl to guard. Derek Jones Jr. being a more wiry kind of long slasher dunker. I think there's a lot of ways that we can do different things. I'd love to see Anthony Edwards on Kyrie Irving early. I'd love to see.
He called the shot right after the Nuggets game. He said that he was going to be the one guarding Kyrie,
which is awesome, man. And you want a guy that's going to call that kind of shot, and with Luka kind of being a little banged up, obviously we probably will see a lot of Jaden McDaniels on Luka Doncic, and then we'll see a lot of Nickeil Alexander-Walker on him as well. But I think we just got to attack that paint. You and me talked about, I think it was Game 4, just going inside. Obviously, in the previous series they have the Joker, the MVP, who's a big body in there, but now they don't have that weight, that mass inside. Like Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, Naz Reid. Like, we got to find ways to get it into them and let them score easy buckets. And obviously we're going to have to, space the floor and shoot really well from 3. But I think early we really got to just dominate the inside and make that a focal point for our team.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I was thinking about it before the game. Like, Karl Anthony Towns has been, throughout the first couple series, he's been tasked with some really tall tasks guarding Kevin Durant, guarding Nikola Jokic, but there is no Kevin Durant or Nikola Jokic for him to guard in this series on the Dallas Mavericks, and they don't really have any match for him offense on their side defensively, but on our side offensively. I'm expecting a lot more of the scoring kind of like cat that we know and love, right?
Yeah, and that almost scares me a little bit too, because obviously he can do that at such a high level, but I don't want him to force it.
Right.
You know, and I think we see a forcing cat and we get a little nervous. Whereas when we see a cat that kind of just lets the game come to him and makes open shots, you know, drives people off the dribble, like that's a better version of Karl Anthony Towns. But you're right, you got to take advantage of mismatches. You know, if anybody knows basketball is all about mismatches. You watched last series, what Denver was doing to us is all just trying to figure out our mismatches. What we're doing to Denver, trying to figure out their mismatches. Right. So what's our biggest mismatch? Our 4 position. Karl Anthony Towns versus a PJ Washington or a Derrick Jones Jr., and then making them say, hey, we can't guard Karl. We got to play Lively and Gafford together. Then you go big, and then switching gets messed up. Anthony Edwards can start to cook. Jaden McDaniels can start to cook, and I think we pose a lot of different matchup nightmares for them.
I think so as well. But on the flip side, Mike Conley is kind of the odd man out in terms of when you're looking at matchups for this team. Do you expect him to be a guy that the Mavericks are targeting on offense?
Yeah, I mean, possibly. You know, I think
he's not a bad. I mean, obviously, he's not a bad defender. I was thinking about it earlier. I'm like, I don't think I've ever sat there, watched a game, and been like, wow, Mike Conley's out there getting cooked. Like that's never happening. But he's an older guy. He's a smaller guy. He had to dealt with some injuries last series, so it just kind of seems like. And plus, like we just said about Karl Anthony Towns, on their side, there's not really a good position for Mike Conley to guard. So I would assume they're going to try to pick on him a little bit.
Yeah, when I think about this game, you know, the Mike Conley is the only position that I wouldn't even say scares me, but it gives me a little bit of concern. Obviously, when you go with your 1 and 2 guard being Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, you have a lot of firepower. So you want to find a way to counteract that firepower with defense. And for us, that looks like Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jaden McDaniels. Also Anthony Edwards, too. But, you know, we need Mike Conley in general. You know, obviously, Mike can obviously hold his own. We're not sitting here saying Mike's a bad defender in any sort of way. We're just giving our flowers to Luka and Kyrie. Yeah. But we need Mike out on the court. We need Mike's presence. We need his aura. We need his facilitating. We need his vocal leadership. We need his non-vocal leadership. We need Mike Conley to be the best version of Mike Conley if we want to win this series. So look for him to maybe play a little less minutes, but I still, at the end of the day, there's no point of changing who you are for a different team. You know, we're the Minnesota Timberwolves. We are who we are. We have to make other people adapt to us versus us adapting to them. We got to play a winning style of basketball.
I could not agree more. I was thinking about it earlier, and the Mavericks, it feels like they need all of their pieces to fire on all cylinders. They need to play like 4 historic games to win this series, and all the Timberwolves got to do is just be themselves.
Yeah, no doubt. You're right, and I think that's something where it's such a beautiful thing. But at the end of the day, that's just basketball in general. Like the moment you start to try to, you know, adapt to what other people are doing, you want to know what they're doing and you want to scheme differently defensively, but like you got to play your brand of basketball. Don't change who you are as a team, because you've played 93 games, like we mentioned earlier. That's a lot of basketball games, and you've won a lot of basketball games. You've won 2 straight series being who you are. Don't change who you are for the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, and we used to see a totally different circumstance, but we used to see it with that Warriors team all the time, how they would basically kind of like bait teams into having a 3-point contest with them, and it was over by halftime. So just be yourself, stick to your game plan, stick to what got you here. And what got them here is Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, Naz Reid, just this entire team playing cohesive basketball. And it's been so much fun to watch. But this game just feels different, doesn't it? Like, I know it's the Western Conference Finals. Obviously, it's a big game. But, you know, like, Inside the NBA is here. They're talking about us on First Take.
Chuck's bald ass is downtown.
Chuck brought his ass to Minnesota. We've all heard the sound clip of Ant telling Charles Barkley to bring his ass to Minnesota. It's been all over the internet. Yeah. Everybody from clothing brands to the state government has been in on the bring your ass movement. But one person who fans really want to bring their ass to the Target Center is Kevin Garnett, the GOAT Timberwolves player, the guy that made a lot of us fall in love with this team and the game of basketball itself. There's been a lot of whispers that KG might be in the building for one of these upcoming home games. I know you love KG like I love KG. How emotional are you going to be if Kevin Garnett shows up tonight or Friday?
Oh, my goodness.
Man?
I hope we see him tonight. I haven't seen anything about him yet. I did see the tweet that he's supposed to be here for one of these games. But, no, I think Minnesota, in general, whether you're a Timberwolves fan or, Vikings, Twins, Wild, whatever that may be, you found love for Kevin Garnett. Just the level of competitor he is, the fire, the energy, the emotion he plays with. And then when he comes to games, he has that same fire, energy, emotion. He's the type of dude where I don't know if he would, do the chug the beer and slam it on your head. But that kind of energy is what KG is. So I hope we get KG here in Minnesota at Target Center, because that would be a treat for everybody. And then personally, selfishly, it would be a treat for myself. Hopefully I get to meet him.
Yeah, that would be so cool, man. Like, I don't even know what I would. That's one of those things where I'd be super nervous to meet someone, Like, I don't usually feel nervous going up to talk to people, but that's one of those ones where you're like, hey, I'm Kevin and you're Max. I mean, you're Kevin and I'm, oh no, oh my God. Like, I'd be so nervous to talk to KG, but the roof will blow off of this place if he shows up for Wolves Mavericks game 1 or game 2. But game 1 is going down tonight. Tip off at 7:30, just 45 minutes away. This is the pre-game party presented to you by Crazy Fresh. Max Fuller and Parker Fox here. Now, Parker, we all know how much firepower Dallas has offensively with Luka, Kyrie, PJ, and others. But I think a lot of people who aren't super in tune with the Mavs would be surprised to know that they're not only a top 10 offensive team, but a top 10 defensive team as well. Much like the Wolves, the Mavs had to play against some pretty high-end offensive players and offensive teams to make their way to the conference finals, and they handled guys like Paul George and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander relatively well. So what makes this Mavericks defense so solid?
Yeah, I think they're a versatile group. I think they can definitely throw a lot of pieces at you. Like we mentioned earlier, anytime you get into a playoff series, it's a 1 through 15 deal. Whoever you're bringing out in the court needs to be ready. It's that kind of that next up mentality, and that's something that I think Dallas just kind of exudes and brings out. Obviously, you got two superstars in Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, but you go right down the list and you get into their bench a little bit with a guy like Lively or Josh Green. Just the energy that those kind of guys bring is high level, and everybody thought this Mavericks team wasn't going to be so bad defensively.
Yeah.
We even heard early in the season, head coach Jason Kidd talking about how they're going to figure their defense out eventually and how they're not worried about it right now. And they did.
Right.
They truly did. This was a team that was, I would watch many games on the NBA app early in the season, the League Pass, and I would say, oh, Dallas gave up 145 points tonight, or Dallas gave up 132 points. Now you turn back around, you get to the playoffs, Oklahoma City in the last 2 games scores 92 and 116.
Oof, and that's a really good OKC Thunder team.
Really good, talented, young OKC Thunder team. So I think this Dallas team poses more threats than people think. Minnesota sports fans want to sit here and be like, oh, this Dallas team can't mess with us.
Right,
There's no way, but be patient, people. This is a series again. We're done with the Denver series.
Yeah.
And that's the craziest thing about sports is you got to find a way to flush it. Congrats. I hope everybody brings the energy, but as players, you got to flush it.
Yeah.
That's over.
Yeah, you won the biggest game in franchise history. Who cares?
So be it.
You still have 4 more to get to the NBA championship and 4 more to win it all.
Yeah, and I think that's something that this Timberwolves team, when I look at it from an outside perspective, I think that's something that they pride themselves on, where it's like, hey, we're not complacent about where we're at right now.
Yeah.
We want to be in the finals. We want to be winning the finals. We haven't done anything yet. Yeah, it's cool and it's franchise record holding and everything, but they haven't done what they want to do yet. And what they want to do is super high, sky's the limit. So I look forward to this game tonight. I think this is going to be a tone setter. I think this is going to be a game where Minnesota's coming off a high. It's really easy it's human nature to say, oh, we're playing so well, we don't got to worry about this team.
Right.
We just beat the champs. We just beat the MVP. That can creep in. That's human nature. So hopefully we center ourselves. Hopefully, our leaders like Mike Conley, Karl-Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert get the guys to understand, hey, this is a new series. Let's get ready to play here.
Yeah, and I totally trust this team. In years past, I would have been a lot more worried about where they're at mentally, where they're at emotionally. But this is such a grounded, resilient, mature team compared to the Timberwolves teams we've seen in the past that I'm not I'm worried because the Mavericks are a good team, but I'm not worried on the Wolves part. I know that they're going to show up and I know that they're going to be prepared. Everybody from Jordan McLaughlin up to Anthony Edwards, they're all going to be prepared. And speaking of Anthony Edwards, we've seen the Nuggets and the Suns have, varying degrees of success doubling Anthony Edwards. It's kind of been teams' go-to strategy against the Wolves throughout this playoff run. Do you expect to see a similar strategy from the Mavericks?
Oh, yeah, we'll see it for sure. And like we mentioned earlier, obviously they pose such an offensive threat with Luka and Kyrie. They're not known as defenders. Obviously, they'll be able to throw like a PJ Washington or a Derek Jones Jr. at Ant, but I think anytime you got such a deep coaching staff and they watch everything that worked for, the Suns and that worked for the Nuggets. And one thing we saw that really worked in that Nugget series was double on Anthony Edwards. And, so be it. If you're going to double Ant, there's going to be somebody else open. So I think we saw that in the second half of Game 7 where, Ant didn't have to explode. Yeah, he was really good defensively. He got a couple of big steals and some stuff in transition, but like half-court offense, it wasn't the Ant show. It was the Minnesota Timberwolves show, and that's the kind of stuff you need to win championships.
I just saw a lady walk by and look you up and down, Parker Fox, and that's how the Timberwolves are looking at that Dallas defense. They're looking at them up and down and looking for some mismatches that they can turn into barbecue chicken. That's not something that the Thunder or the Clippers were really able to do very successfully against the Mavericks. There was a couple anomaly games where they got blown out, but not so much. Is there anything the Thunder or the Clippers did against the Mavs in previous series that you think the Wolves can learn from?
Yeah, I think obviously, a coaching staff goes back and watches all the little things that you can do. Anytime you got two superstars in Irving and Doncic, it's hard to nitpick little things. But I think the biggest thing for me that I saw is this team gets tired. Luka plays. We got hootie hoos going on in here. Let's go. Hootie hoo.
Appreciate y'all.
We love it. But no, I think this Dallas team it's deep, but it's not as deep as we are.
Right.
And in a 7-game series, this is why I love the Wolves so much, is because we're so deep and we truly can go into different places in our bench. We can go with a big guy like Naz Reid. We can go smaller with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. We can even slow it down with the slow-mo himself.
Right.
But we have so many different ways that we can attack this team. And so, I think in a 7-game series, I really look for us to utilize our depth and just try to wear down this Dallas team. Obviously, Luka's been battling a couple little different injuries, and we saw that in the last series. He's the kind of guy that kind of wears those emotions on his sleeve, and he lets you hear it. But he's a tremendous player. We're going to see a tremendous Luka. He's going to hit shots. We're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe he hit that.
Right.
But you just got to like the same thing about winning the last series. You got to flush it and you got to move on to the next one. So I think we just got to really utilize our depth and just make them work for everything they get. Yeah, they might score. Yeah, Luka might score a couple points and hit a couple crazy shots. Kyrie Irving might be Kyrie Irving, but you just got to make them work for it. And over time, hopefully that pays off.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the Wolves are best at, making teams work for it, hustling. We've kind of been dancing around it throughout this whole show, Parker. We only got a couple more minutes left, but what is your final series prediction ahead of Game 1 with everybody hopeful and starry-eyed looking towards the NBA Finals? Do you think the Minnesota Timberwolves have enough to make it there?
Well, as a guy with optimism, I want to say it's Wolves in 5, and I want to be Minneapolis energy and hungry and excited. But realistically, I think the Wolves can get it done in 7 games. I think it's going to be a grinded out series, and I think we're going to be here at Target Center. Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, beating the Dallas Mavericks in a few weeks from now, and I couldn't be more excited to be a part of it.
Oh man, how fun would that be? Another Game 7. It'd be even more fun if they could do it in 5, which is what I'm gonna go with.
Too, man.
I respect this Dallas Mavericks team, but the only horses that I acknowledge are Megan Thee Stallion and Seabiscuit. I ain't afraid of these Dallas Mavericks. I'm going Wolves in 5. This has been the pre-game party presented to you by Crazy Fresh. Me and Parker will be back after the game, howling with the homies, win or lose. So make sure to tune in right here on FM 100.3 KFAN. Cal Soderquist is next with the pregame ahead of Alan Horton and Jim Pete on the call. Wolves, Mavericks, Game 1 going down in about a half hour. Don't go anywhere, y'all. Love you.
At RBC Wealth Management, we know you have ideas for your future. Ideas that can have you enjoying the moment or owning the moment. They can bring investment opportunities or opportunities to invest in yourself. Ideas that can have you doing good or feeling great. From following your passion to making your passion work for you. What ideas will you bring to life? Know more with RBC Wealth Management.